Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, Pope Francis has arrived in Baghdad, becoming the first pope ever to visit Iraq. Now, the trip is happening despite escalating violence in the country. There are also concerns the Pope's trip could lead to COVID superspreader events. Pope Francis is set to visit the birthplace of Abraham, the father of Christianity. He's also visiting churches once occupied by ISIS and meeting the top Shiite cleric of the country. Democrats appear to have the votes to pass President Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief plan in the Senate, but Republicans are not making that easy. Senator Ron Johnson caused a 10-hour delay by having Senate clerks read the entire bill out loud. Now the Senate is beginning debate over the package, which is expected to last for 20 hours, followed by a vote. Senators will likely vote on party lines, but moderate Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski says she's still undecided. Meanwhile, the jobs picture appears to be improving. The U.S. added 379,000 jobs in the month of February, well above analyst expectations. The unemployment rate also fell to 6.2%, slightly better than last month, but still much worse than it was before the pandemic. Primates at the San Diego Zoo have started receiving COVID vaccines made specifically for animals. Those vaccinations come after an outbreak among the zoo's gorillas. Our Will Carr has more on how the pandemic has affected animals, including pets.
Inside the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the gorilla troop has a way of acting just like us, from eating to playing to even getting sick. Most recently, 8 gorillas came down with COVID-19, likely after interacting with an asymptomatic employee. What was your mindset when you found out that they had tested positive?
It was nerve-wracking because this was the first that we knew of. So we started seeing a lot of lethargy and then coughing and sniffling.
The biggest concern when they tested positive for COVID is a gorilla named Winston. He's a silverback, he's 49, which is considered elderly, and he has an underlying heart condition.
We felt strongly that we needed to know what was going on, how it was impacting him, so we knew exactly how to treat him and so that we could make every attempt to make sure that he would recover quickly and resume his important role in the troop. The silverback is critical to their social dynamics and to the balance of how they work together as a family.
To help, the zoo kept the gorillas in quarantine for roughly a month, closing off the exhibit to the public. Now they're all back at it in good health, swinging and smiling in front of masked park goers. They're not the first animals to contract the virus. Keep in mind, the World Health Organization believes COVID-19 started in an animal, then jumped to a human. Since then, we've seen a small number of animals contract COVID in the United States, including Buddy, a 7-year-old German Shepherd.
Buddy was coughing, he was having trouble breathing, he was just not really like himself, and the dog had never been sick.
Natasha Daly, a wildlife reporter, covered Buddy's story last year for National Geographic.
His owners woke up and he was coughing up blood. He was so severely ill that the decision was made to euthanize Buddy. The big mystery here is that in the final days of Buddy's life, doctors and veterinarians thought that it was most likely that he actually had lymphoma, which is a type of cancer, and that's probably explains his really severe symptoms at the end. And that's probably ultimately why he died. But what we don't know is because he had this underlying condition, whether that was linked or whether that made him more susceptible to getting COVID.
Vets, though, including Dr. Julio Lopez, say it's unlikely that your tail-wagging best friend gets COVID.
And it's been about 1 year now since we first learned that dogs could become infected with COVID-19, with the first case in Hong Kong. We've had this whole year to determine whether or not it was going to become a big issue. And so far, we can see that there have only been rare reports of dogs and cats being affected with COVID-19.
Thankfully, the pandemic has largely spared our pets, but there are still some considerations.
People don't realize that dogs and cats and animals in shelters and zoo animals fall between the cracks of any federal agency mission statements, and therefore they are not under any form of surveillance.
Tracy McNamara, a professor of veterinary pathology, believes that the federal government needs to team up with the private sector vets to pay close attention to COVID's impact on animals.
Listen, I'm a cataholic. I own 5 cats. You know, I'm going to snuggle with my cats no matter what. But maybe you want to rethink about getting a tongue bath from your dog, like most dog owners do. Probably not the best thing right now.
And other species are even more susceptible. Animal pharmaceutical company Zoetis says it started developing vaccines for dogs and cats, but then shifted development to the mink after huge populations had become infected with COVID. Vets back at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park reached out to Zoetis after the gorillas scare with COVID.
I said, hey, would you guys be able to help us out? And that's when we provided the vaccine to them on an experimental basis for them to try.
The zoo then administered that vaccine to some of its other great apes to prevent a similar outbreak. Meanwhile, the gorillas that have recovered from COVID are doing well.
Just like humans, right? Animals also get diseases and they need to be protected just like we do.
The efficacy of the vaccines being used on the animals are still being studied. The hope, though, is a healthier way of life for all mammals.
I think it's really important for people to remember that as we protect plants and animals and the habitats and environments that they live in, we're also protecting ourselves. And it really gives us an opportunity for all living things to thrive together.
In San Diego, Will Carr, ABC News.
Our thanks to Will Carr for that report. A New York software engineer who created a website to help others find a COVID-19 vaccine is now using the site's popularity for a new purpose. He's trying to build a bridge for unity against surging attacks on Asian Americans. Here's his story in his own words.
It all started when I was trying to help my mom find a vaccine. It was a pretty arduous process. I just thought that maybe I could do something to make it easier. The idea behind TurboVax is to make it as easy as possible to find real-time vaccine availability. I put out this little solution that ended up helping thousands, if not tens of thousands of New Yorkers. Growing up in Queens, I was not immune to anti-Asian bias. I grew up with people making offhand remarks about my slanted eyes, my yellow skin, my Ching Chong name. Last Thursday, there was a stabbing in Chinatown.
The victim is a 36-year-old Chinatown resident.
I knew that on another day, that could have easily been me. I wanted to illustrate through this action of taking the site down for 2 days that if we as a country don't listen to the concerns of Asian Americans, then we risk losing the contributions of Asian Americans as well. I posted a Twitter thread outlining the situation. I recommended that they donate to a local nonprofit called Welcome to Chinatown, helping preserve our Chinatown here in New York, but also working to fight anti-Asian discrimination. To date, we've actually raised $105,000. I just hope that my experience can show others that as long as you take the initiative and stand up for what you believe in, I think that you can make real change regardless of however big or small you think that may be.
That's Hugh Ma. He tells us that it felt amazing to reunite with his fully vaccinated mother and celebrate the Lunar New Year together. As for TurboVax, Hugh says that he'll continue to provide the service until the vaccine is fully distributed. And now let's turn to the coronavirus pandemic and how it's bringing people together to try to find solutions, particularly for vaccines like Hugh. Let's bring in infectious disease specialist and ABC News medical contributor, Dr. Todd Ellerin, for more on this. Dr. Ellerin, let's go to the vaccines. The CDC says that we're now administering more than 2 million vaccine doses per day. How big is that?
Good morning, Diane. I mean, this is huge. I mean, think about it so far. We've vaccinated about 20% of adults in the United States in about 2.5 months. And now for the last week or so, we've been at about 2 million doses a day. So we're really getting there, and we have to charge forward. Remember, this vaccine essentially is like a human shield. It really protects us against getting severe disease and also will decrease transmission from person to person. This is exactly what we need. We have to keep going forward.
Now, Detroit Mayor Mike Dugan has turned down 6,000 Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccines, saying, quote, Moderna and Pfizer are the best. What are your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Remember, the best vaccine right now is the one that you get. There's no question. These vaccines have not been compared head-to-head. Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were done at different time periods in different countries. There weren't those variants circulating. What's important is that all three of these vaccines that have been given EUA in the United States protect against severe infection. They protect against hospitalization, getting into the intensive care unit, and death.
We have a few viewer questions now I want to hit you with. The first is, if I've been infected and then received the COVID vaccine, is the second dose still worse than the first dose?
It's a great question. You know, we know that if you haven't been infected before and you get both shots of the messenger RNA vaccines, that the second dose is more reactogenic than the first. But what's interesting, Diane, is if you've previously been infected with COVID-19, it's typically that first dose that gives you more of those reactions. And when people have had the second dose after the first dose, it's usually not as bad if you've previously gotten infected.
All right, and now we have another viewer question, kind of related. If you've already had COVID, do you even need that second dose?
Right. So it's a very good question. So small data sets have shown that once you've been infected and you've received the first dose of the vaccine, you get a very robust immune response, almost similar to 2 doses in someone who's never been infected. So scientifically, it probably makes sense that people may only need 1 dose of vaccine after they've been infected. But, and here's the big but, currently guidance is still to receive both vaccines, even if you've been infected.
All right, and the answer to this question might create a little tension in this household, but we're going to ask it anyway. This viewer says that her boyfriend had COVID, but she didn't. And so she's wondering how long his immunity is expected to last, and can he still transmit the virus to her, even if he is immune, because apparently he likes to go to a bar where masks are very optional, she says.
Okay, well, she's in good shape right now, because what we do know is after we've been infected, that does lead to a significant immune protection. And let's face it, we've been dealing with COVID-19 for 1 year, right? And reinfections still are very rare. So the likelihood that he gets reinfected is low. It's not impossible. There are reinfections, but I think she's in good shape. And hopefully she can get vaccinated as soon as possible so she can catch her immune system up to his.
And the CDC timeline on immunity after having COVID, what's the guideline there? Is it 3 months?
As far as,
if you have COVID, how long, you know, can you go without having to take standard quarantine protections, for example?
Yes, yes, definitely. So if you've gotten vaccinated and you're within a 3-month window, you don't have to quarantine. But remember something: if you've been infected already. Yeah, if you've had COVID, then you're considered immune for a long period of time. But the recommendation right now is to still get vaccine within a 3-month period. WHO says 6 months. CDC says 3 months. We still don't know exactly because of the fact that the clinical trials that studied this excluded you if you did have COVID-19. But for now, we still recommend vaccination after COVID-19, and most people can get it after about 3 months after infection.
Dr. Ellerin, thank you. We keep throwing these questions at you. You keep giving us answers. We appreciate it.
And I love those silverbacks, by the way.
Aren't they?
I know you do too.
So if you have questions, you can ask me on Twitter at Diane Armacedo. I will be sure to ask as many as I can get to right here on the show. And now let's turn to the jobs picture. The Labor Department's February jobs report is out today and showing more hiring than expected. But what does that mean for the overall economy? We'll take a closer look when we come back. Welcome back. Time to take a look at the day's science and technology headlines. Here's Mona Kozar-Abdi.
In today's Tech Bites, a high-tech credit card. Samsung and MasterCard are joining forces to create a biometric credit card that will include a built-in fingerprint scanner and several baked-in chips. The idea is to increase security and decrease physical contact points. WhatsApp is adding voice and video calling to its desktop app. The features were only available on the phone app, but the change puts WhatsApp in a better position to compete with Zoom and Google Meet. Plans are also in the works to eventually offer group calls instead of just one-on-one. Finally, Amazon's Fire TV is hitting the road. Jeep says the streaming service will be built into its newest Wagoneer SUVs. Fire TV will be accessible from both the main display and rear seat displays. The driver will be prevented from watching Prime Video content while driving. Those are your Tech Bites. Diane, hopefully the driver won't hear any spoilers either. Back to you.
Mona Kozar-Abdi, thank you. And the stocks are on the rebound this morning after U.S. employers added 379,000 jobs in February, much more than analysts expected. But that's not cutting it for President Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain. Klain writes on Twitter, at this pace, it would take until April 2023 to get back to where we were in February 2020. I want to bring in the Deputy Director of National Economic Council for more on this, BHARAT Ramamurti. Thank you so much for being here, BHARAT. Why this comment from Klain? Is the administration worried that a good jobs report could lead people to think maybe we don't need a nearly $2 trillion relief package?
Well, number one, I think we are always happy to see a good jobs report and to see people getting back to work. That said, as what Ron Klain said in that tweet, we have to remember how big of a hole we're in right now. Even with today's good jobs number, we are 9.5 million jobs short of where we were pre-pandemic. And to put that in context, that's worse. That's a bigger shortage than at any point during the Great Recession, back in 2008 and 2009. So we are still in a massive hole. And even at this, the rate of the last month's jobs report, we would still take 2+ years to get back to where we need to be. And so what the American Rescue Plan does that's moving through Congress is that it speeds up that process significantly. According to Moody's, which is a Wall Street analyst firm, we would get us back next year to that full employment number, back to where we were pre-pandemic. And that means we avoid a lot of pain and heartache for American families who are suffering out there. And I want to just make one other point. You look under the hood of this jobs report and you see that there are still significant pockets of problems. So, for example, the unemployment rate for Black individuals went up this past month. You see that women continue to leave the labor force at a very high and alarming rate. And that's particularly the case for Black and Hispanic women. And so there are some significant problems in the economy still, and we need a big, bold, robust plan to solve those problems.
And we have seen throughout this pandemic, the rising tide is not necessarily lifting all boats here. So how soon, if this relief plan passes, how soon, can households, individual people at home who are struggling, expect to see an impact directly to them? And how soon before we see an overall impact on the economy?
Sure. So the good news is that if this bill passes, and hopefully it will happen in the days and weeks ahead, within a couple weeks of that, you will start to see those checks go out, the economic impact payments, the stimulus checks, whatever you want to call them. Families should start receiving them within a couple of weeks of the passage of the bill. And so that's going to provide a lot of support for families in need right away. Some of the other elements of the bill may take slightly longer to get out and to start helping people. So, for example, there's an expansion of the child tax credit, which is going to provide $3,600 per kid under the age of 6 and $3,000 per kid over the age of between 6 and 18. It's going to be very helpful to families with younger children. We should start seeing that money going out, in the months ahead. And so, as I said before, based on an independent analysis by Moody's, we would expect to see a recovery of about 7 million of those 9.5 million jobs we're short by the end of the year, and then get us back to the pre-pandemic levels at some point during the year next year.
Now, several programs are set to expire soon, including the moratorium on evictions. How does the administration plan to address that?
Well, we are working right now and taking a close look at the eviction moratorium. It's pretty clear that there's still going to be need in the marketplace following the end of the month when it's set to expire. That's part of the reason why the American Rescue Plan includes tens of billions of dollars for rental assistance. In other words, to make sure that, especially lower income renters who may be behind on their rent get some money that will allow them to stay in their home, and at the same time make sure that they're keeping up with their payments to their landlords. But as you noted, there's just deep pain in the economy still. It's not just the nearly 7 million people behind on their rent. It's the fact that, according to recent data, 1 in 7 families is experiencing hunger right now. When you see lines at food banks across the country, something that we haven't seen in this country for a long time. There is even as the top line numbers are starting to improve, it masks a lot of deep problems for a lot of families in this country. And what the president is committed to is making sure that we pass this plan and get help to those families that still need it.
All right, BHARAT Ramamurti from the National Economic Council. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern for the breakdown. Stay safe.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.